Aloha headsets, Frank here, and well, it's been a year. Honestly, I still can't believe that we're here at this point. I mean, don't get me wrong, I always wanted to do something like this. I guess I just never assumed it would be this path that I took to get there. Now, for those of you just tuning in for the first time, wondering what the hell this is doing at the start of a PlayStation VR review, don't you worry, I promise that it is here. And if you'd like to, you can skip forward a little bit, but please, come on, give me a second, give me a chance. Maybe you'll find out we ain't that different, you'll enjoy yourself, stick around a little longer, or I could be wrong. Now, for those of you that don't know me at all, a little backstory. Like many of us, I was a child of the 90s, and video games were constantly in my face. Whether on my favorite TV show, at the local arcade, or even at a friend's house, by 1995, they were pretty much everywhere. And my mother, a deadhead with over 100 shows under her belt, decided her son would not be spending his time glued to the television, entranced by the digital world. Fast forward a few months, with my baby sister nearing arrival, my mother was finding it very difficult to cope with both the pain of pregnancy and my constant nagging to be entertained. She eventually caved, and Sega Genesis became my new nanny. And boy, was I hooked. I would sit fixated with my body moving with the character as if I was one with the cartridge, my tongue dipping out to touch my lip every time I felt the tension of game over, and with each new console, my interest and passion grew and grew. I never really got into PC gaming. I played around with Sims when I was little, but the constant chug of a budget home computer never really sold me. I liked my little console, each new game like a box of candy on a rack, begging for me to consume every bite. So, when virtual reality started to become an actual reality, it wasn't even on my wavelength. Sure, I heard about the Oculus Kickstarter and saw a few things here and there, but it really didn't seem like an actual consumer product. It felt like something only scientists got to play around with, and although sure, I would have loved to try it out, I understood that it was something out of my reach and probably nothing I would ever really get the chance to spend any quality time with. Then, Project Morpheus was announced. I was one of those midnight PS4 buyers. I couldn't wait to get my hands on, and even when Resogun was the only real game, I loved every second. The graphics were just unbeatable, and I couldn't believe how fully immersed I was starting to feel while just playing home video games. I remember thinking, it can't get any better than this, and then each new title blew me away even more than the last. Then it happened. I remember reading an article about how Sony was starting to work on a virtual reality headset that was compatible with the PlayStation 4. Now, at first, I gotta tell you, I didn't believe it. I mean, people were spending thousands of dollars on high-end gaming rigs just to play VR tech demos, and you're telling me my 3-year-old $400 console will play virtual reality. I knew there had to be some catch, and like many of you still out there, I just wrote it off. The months went by and Morpheus became PlayStation VR, and October 2016 hit, and now, if we're being honest, I really didn't even intend to buy a PSVR until maybe a week before launch. I scoured the internet for videos, impressions, articles, and really anything to give me a little insight into whether or not I really needed this first-generation VR headset. In the end, I gave in to temptation, and before I knew it, I found myself waiting behind 4 other extremely excited gentlemen at my local GameStop. When I finally held it in my hand, took a photo with the PlayStation rep, and got home, I was overflowing with excitement. I still remember the first time I opened the box and was welcomed to the next generation of gaming. I followed the setup instructions step by step in an almost ritualistic manner, and when everything was ready to go, I donned my digital crown and I truly escaped for the first time. I think that initial grin lasted on my face for at least a week, and I couldn't stop talking about VR. The only problem, nobody else seemed to care. Sure, they thought it sounded cool, but most people were either worried they would get sick, assumed it was 90s VR, or didn't like the thought of sharing a headset with other humans. It took a little convincing, but I got most of my staff to check it out, and they immediately fell in love. I knew right then and there we truly had something special on our hands. I went home that night and did something I'd never done before. I bought a horror game. That game was The Weeping Doll, and the pictures on the PlayStation Store made it look pretty interesting. I tried to find a review online, but nothing, so I figured, hey, it's VR. You've loved everything so far. It really can't be that bad. It was terrible. And all I wanted to do was shout it from the roof. So I didn't want anyone else to waste their money and possibly hinder their enjoyment of what was slowly becoming my favorite new device, and then it hit me. You always watch reviews online. Why not make one yourself? So I did just that, and within 24 hours, I had nearly 300 views. I was king of the world. I remember checking my video all day, responding to every comment, and trying to best to help a fledgling community grow. I had found my calling. After that, I started making a new video daily. There were a handful of games available, and I made it my personal goal to review every single one. Slowly but surely, I found my pace, and within what felt like no time, our community started to grow. Now it stands, we are nearly 3 million strong and growing each day. With our first true hardware update on the horizon, sales from it booming in Japan, and some amazing titles like Skyrim and Doom coming this holiday season, I think we're finally starting to show the world that VR isn't just another tech demo. Now, for those of you that have stuck with me since the beginning, you are truly fantastic people. I know I can get a little bit annoying and I can drag on sometimes, but I promise you, I am here for you. If you ever really do need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. I know some of you feel like your comments won't ever even get seen, but I can assure you that's not true. Just don't forget, outside of this channel, I work 60 plus hours a week, so if I don't get to it right away, don't worry. Sometimes it just takes me a minute to catch up. Now, for those of you new to the channel, where you been? I'm only kidding. I never want anyone to feel obligated to hang around, but I can promise you won't regret it. Now, enough of me blabbering, and let's talk a little bit about PlayStation VR. Alright, first up, the build. Now, starting out, PSVR was all I had in the headset. I had never tried any kind of new VR before purchasing, so of course, when I started out this channel, I had nothing but praise. Luckily, 1 year later, I still can't believe how happy I am. So I use mine daily for at the very least an hour, and have been doing so for the past year with absolutely no technical issues. I haven't had a band break. I haven't gotten a bad scratch on my lens, and I haven't had any sort of plastic break or rubber tear. It really has been nothing but smooth sailing. I have to say I was a little worried I may see some degradation in the screens over time, but not a single burnt pixel yet. I haven't had any issues with the mechanism that moves the front piece in and out, and I haven't had a problem with the tightening knob. I've also stepped on my little black box countless times, and although I haven't put my full weight on it, no issues yet. When I'm done playing, I always wind my wires, I put them in a drawer, and I think doing that keeps them in much better condition. One thing to note, and the main reason that I do that, is I have heard tons of horror stories of cats and dogs chewing through the wires in seconds. So if you grab a PSVR, please be careful about leaving your wires around. Now, it wouldn't be an actual review if I didn't mention the known issues, which I'm glad to say there have been very few. I have seen some broken bands, which could be from a large-headed user or just reckless adjustments. Either way, it doesn't seem to be a widespread issue. I've also heard about a few units with burnt pixels. All I can say is that Sony has been wonderful with product replacements, so although it doesn't seem to be too common, at least you know you're covered. Finally, I really do like the fact that the updated headset has inline headphones and allows for 4K playback without unplugging. I just wish Sony would have had the foresight to include these features in the Gen 1 PSVR. It's not enough to warrant an upgrade, but it's still a bit of a kick in the face to our pro 4K gamers. I also think the main wire coming out of the headset could be a little longer to allow for a bit more room between one's feet and the little box, but with all the 3D printed clip and ceiling dangle options out there, it's more just me nitpicking. Tracking. Now, a headset would be nothing without the tracking. It's what allows you to have that sense of presence that you can only get from a VR game, and when it's done correctly, it can lead to complete and total immersion. So, as I'm sure most of you know by now, we are the odd man out when it comes to tracking. Where other HMDs use constellation or IR tracking, we are stuck with light-based. Now, I'm sure it was just a cost-saving design, but regardless, it must be said that tracking on PlayStation VR is not optimal. Now, lucky for you, it's not the biggest issue anymore. At launch, it was very apparent that developers were having issues creating that one-to-one feeling a player needs to be fully invested in a game. Thankfully, after a few months and the release of the PS4 Pro, things have gotten much better. Now, we still don't have room scale or anything like that, but it's much more than just 180-degree tracking. With the right camera setup, you can reach above your head, down to the floor, and far enough to take a few steps without any real issues. It's turning around that's the problem. Now with only one camera tracking your movement, it's very easy to get your body between the lights and the camera, which leads to your in-game hands freaking out and kind of pulls you out of the game. It's not the biggest issue. Most developers have found ways to work around the outdated system, but I have to be honest, the ability to move around your play space with no boundaries is incredibly freeing. And until PlayStation finds a way to allow for a more room-scale style tracking, it will be the only thing holding it back from its PC brothers. Visuals. So, jumping in, I knew not to expect photorealistic level of detail, but I must say, I've been pleasantly surprised. Now, not all games are stunning marvels in the graphics department, but after spending a little time with VR, you start to notice that game mechanics are far more important than visual fidelity. All that being said, some of the games out there look amazing. Sure, you get a little bit of that screen door effect, and some of the games do look like trash, but most of the games that look like trash here look like trash on PC as well. The medium is so new that other than a few well-funded first-party titles here and there, most games are on a pretty level playing field. If you're expecting flat game-level graphics out of a VR headset, you'll be hard-pressed to find it anywhere right now. Audio. Now, I always mention audio because for the first time, other than in competitive first-person shooter games, it really makes a difference. The audio of a title truthfully can make or break the immersion for me at this point, and the ones that do it right, you don't even notice. Sony has done a fantastic job at creating spatial audio within the PSVR, and I really don't think it gets enough credit. Thus, why we're talking about it right now, and really all you need to take away from this is that you should immediately replace your earbuds that come with your unit for a pair of over-the-ear headphones. Now, there is nothing wrong with those stock earbuds. I use those for months. They're perfect. They work great, but after going to the over-ear, I would not go back. Peripherals. A thing other than good tracking that sets VR apart from gaming mediums is the inclusion of hand presence. Finally, feeling like you have a real input into a digital world is what makes VR so special, but do the outdated Move controllers even allow for that sort of immersion? Well, sort of. Sadly, at this point, it's really more of hit or miss when it comes to games. The Move controllers themselves do a great job at getting tracked and performing in-game. The issue lies in the fact that each developer implements Move functionality differently, and some titles just don't perform as well as they could. We also suffer from a lack of any sort of analog stick or touchpad to simulate movement. Thus, many games are stationary, teleport-based, or implement a strange Move configuration to allow for full locomotion. There's no doubt in my mind that we will see some form of updated Move controller in the future, but for the time being, these ones do a great job most of the time. We also have the PS Aim controller, which is the first true VR gun peripheral, and it works wonderfully. The games that have implemented its functionality are top sellers in the store, and some of the titles that I have spent the most time with. They started off with a bang when it first came out, releasing a bunch of titles. I just hope they continue to push more games to include it because it's one of my favorite ways to play. Software. Okay, so it's finally time to talk about the games, and regardless of what you've heard, we truly have some of the most polished and complete VR games and experiences on the PlayStation VR. We have some of the greatest first-party support, and Sony has been handing out money to developers left and right. One thing I have noticed in the VR landscape is the rise of indie games, which I think is one of the most amazing changes I've seen in years in the gaming industry. VR has completely switched things up, and it's the little guys that are passionate and excited to bring you some of the best titles I've had with my PSVR. From draw-dropping games like Farpoint to the mindless fun of Job Simulator, PSVR competes and surpasses most of the competition when it comes to finished games. Don't get me wrong, there are some amazing games out there on the Oculus and Vive that we may never see, but I promise you those games are few and far between. There are over 100 titles available for us right now, with over 40 more coming our way in the next few months. So if you're worried PSVR doesn't have any games, don't be. We got you covered. Now, all that being said, I have given some leniency to titles in the first year that may not see the same treatment moving forward. We're out of preschool now, and I hope that moving forward, Sony picks up the pace and keeps pushing out interesting and immersive experiences that push the boundaries of what gaming has grown to become. Alright, finally, comfort. So the last little section is review because it just needs to be mentioned is that Sony did a fantastic job designing the PSVR for long play sessions and just all around general comfort. I rarely feel any sort of pressure, and most of the time I forget I'm even wearing it. And if you noticed at some of the new Windows MR headsets coming out, they all follow a similar design, so proof's in the pudding right there. And final thoughts. So it's been a year. I've gone from being a console gamer glued to his TV to a VR gamer lost in another world. When I started this whole thing out, all I had was a PlayStation VR, but after putting in a year of hard work and dedication, I am proud to tell you that I am now sponsored by Oculus and a Vive affiliate. So why am I still wasting my time with PSVR if I could be using a real VR headset? That's an easy one, because PSVR is a real VR headset. Spending time with PC VR has only helped to confirm that even more. I initially saw it as a sort of PlayStation versus Xbox kind of thing, but soon realized it's nothing like that. We share most of the same top games, and with more and more crossplay titles coming out, our community is slowly becoming one. We're at a time where we don't need to be competing, we need to join as one to help VR reach that point of critical mass. Then we can worry about tearing each other limb from limb. I personally love my headsets and wouldn't trade any of them for another. Regardless of your platform, this is the first generation of consumer VR, so just understand that things will only get better from here, which kind of blows my mind a bit because I'm still giddy from where we're at now. Moral of this whole damn story, if you are interested in checking out VR and thinking of buying a PlayStation VR to hop into the metaverse, I can guarantee you'll get your money's worth, and you may even get lost and never come back.
PS4 for the players.